Okay, today we move into a new section. We're moving into the market system. We've gone beyond our introduction and we're going to start with the concept called relative prices. Can actually confuse a few students, but it's not that difficult. So market-based economies like we have in Australia are mostly guided by the wishes of consumers. We know what that is. We looked at consumer sovereignty last year. This is what we're talking about. When consumers demand goods and services, they send out signals to producers who respond by allocating resources to meet their demand. So what they're saying is consumers will buy a product in the marketplace. They are telling the producers, yes, not only are we willing to purchase this product, but we are willing to pay that particular price. Producers can then sit down and go, well, okay, this is the price I expect to receive, therefore they can work out their profitability. Adam Smith, a famous English economist, wrote a book called An Inquiry into the Nature and Causes of the Wealth of Nations. Thankfully for all economics students and economics people, they decided to shorten that to simply The Wealth of Nations. It was written in 1776. And in that, he suggested the consumer acted like an invisible hand, which guided producers into how they were going to respond to the needs of the marketplace and the needs of consumers. Why does this happen? Well, let's look at the law of demand. Consumers have needs and wants, and they behave according to the law of demand. What is the law of demand? Well, we're going back to basic Unit 1 economics. We all know what it is. Demand for a good or service falls as its price increases, and that demand increases as its price falls. Very simple. Price goes up. You sit back as a consumer and go, oh, do I really want to pay that, or will I go and buy something else? As price drops, the demand goes up. There's, well, I know for me in particular, and probably most males on the face of the planet, particularly in Australia, we're all sitting here with a pile of $6 DVDs that we bought in JB Hi-Fi that we didn't really need, or some of them we haven't even watched. But you know what? It was $6. If the price of that particular DVD was $20, I wouldn't have looked at it. But to go in, see it for $6, Zulu, things like old movies like that, it's $6, therefore the demand goes up. I want that. Never watched it, but you know what? I wanted it. Okay, consumers behave this way for two main reasons. The first one is what we call the income effect. As the price of something increases, it becomes less affordable. This is all based on income. By the same amount, you are using up more of your income. Let's say, for example, you earn $1,000 a week and you want to buy a Blu-ray player and that's going to cost you $100. Well, that's 10% of your income. You're in Unit 3 economics by now. You should be able to work that one out without a calculator. So that Blu-ray is going to cost you 10% of your income, $100 out of $1,000. But say purely for example, the price of that Blu-ray goes up to $200. Same product, you're still earning $1,000. It's now going to cost you 20% of your income. So that's the income effect that we're looking here. Price going up, you've still got the same amount of income coming in, so you've got to pay out a greater percentage of your income, which means you might be looking for other products instead. The substitution effect, as the price of a product rises, you're going to switch your demand. And the most basic example is butter and margarine. So if you're a margarine person and the price of margarine starts to go through the roof, you know what? You may look at that and start to say, well, butter's probably not that bad. I think I'll give butter a try, particularly if the price of butter does not change. And vice versa. You like your butter and the price of butter keeps going up, then you may start to consider margarine. So here we are looking at going back to the old substitutions complements thing, so the substitution effect. Price of one goes up, we'll look for a different alternative. We'll look for an alternative product. Okay, producers behave according to the law of supply. And again, we know that consumers demand, producers supply. Law of supply says as price rises, producers want to put more into the marketplace. If people are willing to pay, if the consumers are willing to pay more, then producers want more of their product out there in order to make more money. Conversely, as the price of a good drops, producers tend to say, well, we'll still put some into the market, but not as much, because that reduces our profitability. So this is just a basic supply and demand graph, just showing you the relationship between supply and demand. There's our equilibrium point. At D1 here, this is the price D1. At that particular point here, quantity 1, consumers are willing to pay this price and will buy this amount of product. Suppliers are saying, well, you know what, if consumers are willing to pay that price, we will put that amount of product in. There are no shortages, there are no surpluses in this case. all product put into the market by producers are purchased by consumers. Equilibrium point. Ooh, look at that. Isn't that clever? Okay, so we get onto the role of relative prices. Every good and service that enters the market has a price. Unless it's a public good, there we go, free, thank you very much. This is what the price of this particular product, and it's all determined by the market. Prices allow producers to make comparisons now between different products and determine their relative profitability. Relative means exactly what it says right here. We are now going to compare prices, relative prices. We're going to compare prices of products. So let's look at this graph. Producers can produce either bananas or pineapples at the same cost. Doesn't matter what it is, could be $2, but whatever that cost is, it's exactly the same cost, and the price of each is $5 per kilo. Does it really matter what they produce? No, not really. They're going to make the same amount of profit. Here's our equilibrium point, $5. It doesn't matter whether they produce bananas or pineapples. They will make the same amount of money. Okay, let's say purely for argument's sake, the demand for pineapples increases. Somebody does a report and they find out that if you eat pineapples and you're a bald man, your hair will grow back. So the price of pineapples the demand for pineapples goes up. People want pineapples. So you're a producer, if demand for your product goes up, you're going to put your price up to try and increase your profitability. So let's say purely for this, in this case, the price of pineapples now goes up to $6. Demand is changing. We have a new demand curve, or it moves to the right because demand has increased for our pineapples. When we find our equilibrium point, $6 is now our new price of pineapples, and this is the new quantity that will be our new equilibrium point. So suppliers are willing to supply at this point here at quantity part 2, and consumers are willing to pay $6 for their pineapples right here. Now, here comes the relative prices part. Because the price of pineapples has increased to $6, producers will now look there and say, you know what, we may reallocate our resources from bananas into pineapples, because remember we said the cost is the same. So, relative to bananas, producers can make more money simply by producing pineapples. Okay? Through their spending decisions, consumers have sent out a signal to producers and have brought about a change in relative prices. So that's exactly what we're looking here. Consumers have decided they want more pineapples because they can get their bald men can get their hair back. Suppliers now are going to change their allocation resource decisions and say we're going to move away from bananas and we're going to move into pineapples because consumers are willing to pay $6. Everybody's happy, particularly producers. Their profitability has now increased because their costs have remained the same. Remember that. That's what we're talking about, relative prices. We're comparing. Okay? Without being told to do so, producers will reallocate resources, we've just said that, into their pineapples in order to maximise their profits. And again, as we've mentioned, that's all part of being in business. So Adam Smith's invisible hand does act to direct resources to produce what consumers want, because producers always seek to maximise profits. Unless, as we've said before, unless they're a government, then they've pretty much got no idea how to run a business. Okay, I know it's a little bit all over the place, but it's reasonably simple and we'll discuss it further in class.